Every parent thinks that their son is the best.
Curious and confident, 11-year-old Kieran was such a good student, he was about to skip 6th grade.
Kieran was articulate, insightful. He wanted to work on diseases like Alzheimer's disease.
But now, he'll never walk through the doors of his Washington, D.C. school again.
The terrorists didn't know who they were killing. We should know what the world lost, what they took from the world. A brilliant mind who was going to be a neuroscientist, and now he won't make it to his 12th birthday.
Kieran Shafritz-de-Zoysa was one of nearly 300 killed and at least 500 wounded in coordinated bombings in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday. The island nation coming to terms with one of the worst acts of terror since 9/11. And today, more chaos as police continue to find and defuse more bombs.
A huge explosion just went off just around that corner there. Huge scream went up from the crowd over there. You can see them running towards our position here where we are now. There's a police detonation, but that was absolutely terrifying.
Everyone on edge as we learn officials were warned at least 3 times of possible terror attacks, many asking why authorities failed to prevent the mass carnage and what they could have done. It started on the morning of Easter Sunday, one of the holiest days in Christianity. Colombo, Sri Lanka's capital, the first to be hit.
We are right outside St. Anthony's Church where one of the suicide attackers struck.
Time here forced still at 8:45 a.m. when the first suicide bomber unleashed destruction through the wooden pews as worshippers gathered in prayer.
The bomb went off and you ran inside the church.
Yeah. This neighbour rushed into the church as soon as he heard the explosion. He told me it was covered in blood and filled with the dead and injured, who he brought to the hospital. At the same time, about an hour north of the capital, a second suicide blast. Where the faithful once knelt, only glass and debris, a celebration of new life now ravaged by death. Minutes later, a third explosion, shattering a holiday brunch at the Shangri-La, a favourite among foreign tourists.
Even from the 25th floor, the impact was very loud, and my wife and I just grabbed our passports and decided to evacuate.
Then, around 9 a.m, almost simultaneous blasts at 3 other locations, a church on the country's eastern coast and 2 hotels in the capital. Alex Arrow had been trying to reach his only child, Kieran, at one of them, the Cinnamon Grand Hotel.
Couldn't pick up the phone, and he texted me back, "Can't talk right now," because he was in the elevator going to breakfast.
Kieran was in Sri Lanka visiting his mother on that fateful morning.
He got a shrapnel wound that pierced his heart. It could have been a foot or 2 in either direction, and it would have been totally different. He bled out in the restaurant. There's not a damn thing I can do for him in Sri Lanka.
And even then, the terror wasn't over. Hours later, 2 more explosions, one at a hotel just south of Colombo, and a final one in the suburbs of the capital, when a suspect being questioned by police detonated a suicide bomb. 8 explosions in total, an overwhelming number of deaths. Within hours, Sri Lankan security services apprehended at least 24 suspects, and a murky picture began to emerge of who authorities say was behind these attacks. Sri Lankan TV showing security footage being investigated by police that purports to show one of the suicide bombers at St. Sebastian Church in Negombo. Local officials say he may have been part of a little-known group, the National Tawheed Jamaat.
We know that the National Tawfiq Jamaat is a group that is almost exclusive to Sri Lanka. They are considered a domestic terrorism group.
It's the first time authorities say this organisation has pulled off such a large-scale attack, leading officials to believe that they may have had some help.
The multi-locations, the fact that they used explosive devices that all went off, it's very possible that this terror group is connected to a larger terror group that has that sophistication.
We don't see that only a small organization in this country can do all that. There is all we are now investigating about the international support for them.
But many pointing out that there were ample signs leading up to the Easter massacre.
There was a warning that was issued by a police chief about 10 days before the attack. And it's a question of whether that warning was taken seriously by all of the law enforcement agencies and the government throughout Sri Lanka.
This advisory was sent by a Sri Lankan police official on April 11th, specifically warning of suicide attacks targeting churches by National Tawhid Jamaat. According to the New York Times, a senior advisor to the country's president has denied any security lapses. Everyone has done their jobs. These kinds of alerts are coming from time to time. But some are now pointing their fingers at the president and the country's prime minister, saying political rivalry between them led to a breakdown in communications. Sri Lanka is no stranger to warring factions and political turmoil. The majority of Sri Lanka's population are Sinhalese and Buddhist, with less than 10% estimated Christian. For nearly 3 decades, the Sri Lankan army fought a brutal war against the Tamil Tigers, a militant organisation credited for some of the earliest uses of suicide vests in the 1980s.
The Tamil Tigers used it as a weapon of choice. They killed, hundreds, tens of thousands of their adversaries, civilians and military.
Their civil war ended 10 years ago when the army defeated the Tamil Tigers.
Even though the war is over, there is this type of violence and inciting of violent rhetoric that has occurred within Sri Lanka. So it hasn't ended. The civil war is over, but the activity has not stopped.
But an attack of this scale is unprecedented, with the number of victims and wounded horrifyingly high, among them at least 4 Americans. Like Dieter Kowalski from Denver, he worked for the education company Pearson and had just arrived at his hotel in Colombo when the bomb detonated. And Kieran Shafritz de Zoyzer, that young boy who aspired to be a neuroscientist.
When this news passes, there won't be attention on this particular incident anymore, and we'll be on to the next thing. But Kieran was... The world has lost a great mind, and that's why we're doing this interview.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.